and that means dropping the pump back to 0 position where there is no lift. And we need to remove the bolts because they are a hindrance. They get in the way. They won't let the pump turn enough to drop it back to 0. Now the bolts are out, I can now set this up so I'm zeroing it in first. You see by this there's no obstruction, so I can turn the pump 360 degrees if necessary. Obviously this is not the case, and we're using the pin as a reference. I'll drop it back to find a 0 point where there is no lift. Okay. If you know how to use a DTI, then you'll know first of all you need to zero it in before you do anything else. And we drop the pump right the way back until it's not lifting at all. Then we can set the 0 point on the DTI and find our lift point. Sometimes the DTIs can be a bit tricky, and setting it up, if you move it backwards and forwards till you got 0, it's nearly there, and move it until it is actually at a 0 point. Once you've got it there, then you can check where your lift is at. Okay, so I'm having a little bit of trouble with this. It's being awkward today. So dropping it back here till there's, well, no resistance basically, you can feel the lift on the pump. So I'm moving it backwards and forwards and setting the dial gauge. You'll assess that I'm actually working on 2 different pumps. Right, it's zeroed in now, and what I can do, I'm happy with this, I can now check the lift, take it up to which lift the workshop manual recommends. And the one on the bench should be 1.54, so I'm taking this up and looking at the gauge. Okay, back to the one on the bench. It's a matter of getting the 0 right first of all. Okay, there we are, we're about right. It's a gnat cock out, and I'm going to push it round, so 1 turn, 2nd turn, 1.54 I'm looking for, so that is 1.54 millimeters of lift, and that is exactly where I've got it right now. It's a bit trickier on an engine, especially if it's hanging off an engine crane, and it's a matter of moving it very, very slowly until you get to the dial gauge to where you want it to. I've got it fairly close there to 1.40 on this EGR pump, and it is worth checking with a pin. This timing pin should actually drop into place, which it does. Next thing to do is to set the bolts in there so that I know that I'm somewhere close to this. Alright, once the bolts are in, I can then do it up and just set it for the last little piece. Okay, so you got that. Basically it's almost there and the pump is set, and I've got the timing pin in just to hold it there, and it's not 100% at the moment. Just nipping the bolts up just very, very loosely so I can move the pump drive again and then just nip it up. So back to the dial gauge, and I'm going to set this now for the last time, bring it up, and I want 1.40 millimeters lift at TDC, right, which is exactly there. That's what the workshop manual is saying for this specific engine. Okay, so I can cram up the bolts now, have a last look to make sure it's okay, and the pump is now set exactly right. Taking a look back at the dial gauge, it is cock on. So I'm using the pin now to make sure that I check this, tell you that it's right. Yep. For your engine you'll need to check the data for the pump that's fitted to your engine. Don't take it for gospel on mine. With the bolt in the back, you want to fit a new copper washer and screw it in. Obviously you'll have copper washers, and then apply the correct torque for the bolts. Okay, so the non-EGR pump goes to 1.54 millimeters lift at TDC, which is this. Okay, we agreed on that. This is the 200 TDI and the 300 TDI, earlier engines. Now I'll just take this up to what the gauge was showing, and this is up to where the pin should go in. Alright, now that's a certain amount of lift. You agree with me there? Just to show you as a demonstration, I'll pull the pin out and then I'll take it through the rest of its injection lift. Okay, right, so it's taken it that far. If I push it any further, it'll go to a 0 position. Alright, before it starts pumping again. So what will happen, I've taken it from 1.54, that will keep going round until it drops off, which will be there. The aim behind this was just to show that it was not at the peak of its lift. Right, well, I hope you understand that this gauge is to show you how to set your pump timing for your fuel injection pump, which is Bosch for Ye, and it'll work for quite a few different vehicles, not just the Land Rover. The whole idea is to set the lift at a certain point. This is highly accurate, which is better than a timing pin. So we'll take this into consideration, and it is an excellent tool to use for Land Rover pump timing. Alright, just if you're still interested and you haven't switched off already, here's a little bit of homework for you. What I want you to do is find out what pump you have, and it should have an R and 3 digits after it, stamped on your pump, and tell me what the lift is at TDC.